Hi, my name is Helen Schwartz, and welcome to Absolutely Orchids. If you remember last meeting, we learned a little bit about what an orchid is. This time, I hope to tell you a lot about how to grow them. Every orchid has 5 basic requirements. They are water, airflow, light, food, and hygiene. Water probably is the most important thing, and you do have to learn how to water properly. There's 2 different things. There's misting and watering. Now, don't confuse the 2. Watering means that you have to have your plant well saturated. You take a hose and you let it run for 5 to 10 minutes until that media the plant's growing in is wet. Misting just means to take it and just go across the plant to give the leaves a little relief from possibly the hot or the dry. I'm going to show you what I mean right now. Here's a hose, and it has several different settings. The first one will be a gentle flow so that you don't knock the media out of the pot. And this should be in your plant for approximately 10 minutes. Then we go to the misting, which is this. This is good to cool your plants off in the middle of the summer. When it's dry, the humidity is very low, even in winter. Misting is fine, but watering is a whole different thing. Now, if you only have a few plants, you could take a big tub of water, place the entire plant in there, and let them absorb the moisture from the bottom, which takes approximately 15 to 20 minutes. If it's very dry, sometimes the plant will float up. Get a big rock, put it in the pot so it'll keep it down, just weighting it. And then you shouldn't have any problem. Now, you have to remember is that if a little is good, a lot is not better. Now, the next question, and this one is inevitable. How do I know how much water to give my plant? Well, unfortunately, there is no answer to that. Everybody has different growing conditions. You have the amount of humidity in the air. If there's a lot of humidity, the plants will stay wet longer. The amount of breeze you have, the more breeze, the quicker the plants will dry. Then you have the type of pot you're growing in. If you're growing a plastic pot, that retains moisture. Clay pots breathe, so they dry faster. Baskets dry faster, but remember, with a basket, even though it's empty and it doesn't look like it has any water in it, the wood itself gets wet, so it retains moisture and it feeds your plant. You have mounting, you have cork, and you have tree fern. So all this has to be taken into consideration when you decide what amount of water to give your plants. And remember, when they're mounted on tree fern and cork, they require more water. Another consideration is what type of plant we are growing. This is a cattleya, and I'm going to show you this because it has the most prominent eye. Remember last week we mentioned sympodial and monopodial. The sympodial was the plant that grew in horizontal direction, and it had a rhizome which connected the 2 pseudobulbs. And the monopodial was the one that grew, where is that one? Straight up like this, where the new growth comes right out of the top. Well, this has more than one function. It is food and water storage, and it also houses the eye. This is the eye. If you'll notice at the base of this plant, there's a small triangular protrusion and little roots coming out. This is going to be your next pseudobulb, which is this, and that will be where your next flower will come from. Now that's when it's first beginning. Here's one that's probably about, 2 weeks old, about that big. And then we have one that's almost ready to have a sheath, about this big. This will grow probably to about this tall. A lot of times you can tell if your plants are doing well because the back growths are smaller than the front growths. So this is the eye, and these pseudobulbs, whether they are a cattleya, whether they are little oncidiums, they all have eyes. The plant will grow in normally one direction. The base of every one of these bulbs has an eye, but only the ones that are the growing end will develop. Supposing something happens to this plant and it gets cut here, or this eye falls off, or we have some cold damage. Well, one of these back ones, which we call back bulbs, that eye will develop. This plant has a tremendous will to survive, believe me. And anything it can do, it will. So, in this kind of a plant, with a pseudobulb, we don't have to water as often because we have food storage. But in this kind of plant, you can see that there's no place to store anything, so they have to be watered and kept more humid than this. This is also another of the type that grows straight up, and you can see right out of the middle is coming the new growth. This will be another leaf that'll come out just like this. Another thing that we didn't mention was the pH of the water. It's very important that it should be between 5 and 7. There are easy ways to check it. You can get some litmus paper at probably one of your stores. I don't know exactly where to buy it, but I'm sure you can check. And if you have any problem finding it, call your county extension agent. Some of your local nurserymen might be able to help you. But some way or other, I know that it'll be easy if you use the right sources to check the pH. And they can also give you information as to how to change it, if it's too high or too low. But it should be, as I said, between 5 and 7 for the optimum growth of your plants. Okay? All right, now let me put these away here and we'll go on to the next thing, which is airflow. Just think about your closet in the middle of summer. Here we have a 90-degree plus temperature, 98-degree humidity, no breeze, and no air conditioning. What do you think your closet's going to look like in about a week? Pretty bad. I can tell you're going to have mold and mildew everywhere. Well, your plants are the same. They don't like those conditions. They can handle the temperature. They can handle just about anything as long as they have airflow. So if nature doesn't provide you with any breezes, then you have to do it for them with fans. But there has to be air circulation. If you don't have air circulation, you have a dead corner and you're growing your plants there, what you're doing is providing an environment where fungus and bacteria can grow. And I don't think this is what we really want. So remember, you can handle the temperature, you can handle just about anything as long as they have good airflow. I think probably the next thing of the three very important ones are your light. The light's going to vary anywhere from full sun to these types of orchids. This is a little terete vanda. This is the kind you see in Hawaii that have all the little flowers on. They make the leis out of. Well, that's it. This is a terete vanda. And this is a reed epi, an epidendrum radicans. These can be out in full sun from the time the sun goes up till the time it goes down, and it doesn't hurt them. But not all your plants are the same. So what we have is a very wide range. We have a range from full sun all day to possibly 60% shade. And if you'll follow me, I'm going to take you out and show you just what I mean. Out here in the yard, I'm going to show you, try to show you anyway, the different shades of light. This one here, closer to the trunk of the tree, naturally is going to have the most shading. As we walk further out toward the end of the branches, you'll notice the light increases. About right here, the cattleyas like this type of shading and lighting. The vandas can go out a little further here. And if you'll see, I have a little ascocenda hung here. This will be fine because it has a good morning sun up till around 1 o'clock. And right now, when the sun is in that part of the sky, it'll be shaded in the afternoon because west light is not good. It's very harsh, and it shouldn't be allowed to be on the plants without some type of protection. Your leaves can be an indicator of whether you're getting enough light. If they're very, very green and lush, you're probably getting too much shade. So use them as an indicator. They should be kind of like a chartreuse color, and if they get too light, then the plant will stop producing food and it suffers. So remember, you just want the right amount of light, the right amount of shade, and then you'll have a good, healthy plant. Oh, now wasn't that fun? See how much we learned out there? Okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is food. The first three things we talked about are a given, and they are something that the plant must have. Food, on the other hand, is not an absolute necessity. Remember that orchids are structured by nature to kind of take care of themselves. They survive out in the jungle, and nobody feeds them, nobody waters them. They look pretty seedy. If you see them growing your tree, you probably wouldn't want them to take home. But when they get them home and they grow into a nice controlled environment, they really do a lot better. So it's up to you whether you want to supply food. But what you decide to do, you have to be consistent about. You have to decide if you want to fertilize these plants at a good rate, or do you want to just let them go as nature does? Because either way, they're going to survive. But what they can't do is have you fertilize them 2 months, forget about them for 6 months, and then go back and do another month and say, oh, the poor things haven't eaten this week, and I'm going to feed them. That is not good. They will get along fine if you just let them be, if you don't want to take the time to feed them. Now, if you decide you want to feed them, good. You should use approximately 1 teaspoon of a good balanced 20-20-20 fertilizer every week. Some people find it more convenient to use 2 teaspoons every 2 weeks. That's fine too. A lot of your large nursery growers, they just use, every time they water, they put a little bit in, as long as the equivalent is the same. The theory behind that is that the plant can assimilate better a smaller amount than it can all the fertilizer at one time. I personally feel that it doesn't matter. If you grow in a pot, some of that fertilizer is going to be absorbed by the media. If you grow in a basket, the same thing. So every time it waters, some of that's going to be released again for the roots to absorb. So whatever you decide is all right. But whatever you do, remember, it has to be done. Now, in the summertime, it should be done approximately every 1 to 2 weeks. In the wintertime, when the weather is cooler and the plant metabolism slows down, you can let it go anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes even 5 weeks. Because another reason you don't want to fertilize in the wintertime is that if you have a warm spell like we've had the last couple of weeks, between cold ones, the plant doesn't realize that it's going to be cold. It just does what it's supposed to do. You're feeding it and it's growing, and here's all this nice new growth that's very tender, and you have a cold snap come along and pow, there goes your new growth. So better to be consistent and during the year fertilize a lot in the summer and a lot less in the wintertime. There is another 2 schools of thought. In fact, there's probably more than 2 schools, but I don't use it. It's a bloom buster fertilizer. It's 10-30-20. The first number is nitrogen, the second number is potassium, and the third number is phosphate. I am a firm believer in my health and the orchid's health that if you eat right and you take reasonably good care of yourself, you don't need to take vitamins. And that's really basically what you're doing. You're giving this plant an extra shot. And I seem to have enough flowers that I don't really need to change the fertilizing system. It won't hurt if you want to do it. It just, to me, it doesn't really make that much difference. So, as I said before, it's very important that you decide what you're going to do. Are you going to fertilize or not? They're going to get along fine without you. Another thing you have to remember is that balance is very important. If you have a lot more light than you would like, for some reason there's some way you can't shade it, then you have to increase your water, you have to increase your fertilizer. If you have a lot less light than you like, then you do just the reverse. Because what happens is, if the plant doesn't have enough light and you're giving it a lot of fertilizer, your growth will be spindly, and it won't be a nice, healthy-looking plant. So the 3 things have to balance. And how do you find out? You look. The best thing that you have, the best tool that you have are your eyes. You have to inspect your plants. You have to see how they're growing. Does this look like it's good and healthy? Look at this. Now, this is pretty pitiful, isn't it? But you see, the new one's coming up nicely. So whatever you did wrong, it seems like you're doing better. But eyes are most important. Well, as you can see, we had some cold weather last night, and I'm coming out here now to check to see if I see anything that looks like it might be damaging. Most of the time, if you do have cold damage, though, it doesn't show up for about 2 or 3 days after the cold. We probably went down to 37 degrees here last night, but you see what I do? I have plastic over the ceiling, plastic on the sides, and I have these little kerosene heaters, which I keep everywhere in the greenhouse. Now, if you have a small collection, the best thing to do is just bring them in the house. But remember, if you do bring them in, don't just put them in the garage where it's just as cold as it is outside. Put them where they're going to be warm. Now, if you leave them out, put them somewhere where they're protected from the wind. The best thing to do is put them in one area, cover them with a sheet, an old blanket. We used to keep old sheets around all the time just for that one reason, and put plastic over the entire thing. Never, ever let the plastic touch the plant itself, because plastic transmits heat, it transmits cold, and so that what you're doing is you're just intensifying the heat or the cold on the plant. If you know you're going to have a cold spell, water them thoroughly, because they're not as stressed out if they have enough water. And probably the best thing to do is to, if you're going to use water at all, is to water them in the morning, and then if you have to leave the water on all night long, leave it on all night and don't turn it off until around 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. Actually, plants can take down to about, I think it's 28 degrees for an hour or so without any damage. Tissue breaks down about that degree of temperature. So if the plants do get cold, mostly what will happen is they'll lose leaves. Like this particular type of plant is a dendrobium, and it won't die. What will happen is the leaves will turn yellow, and a lot of the older leaves will turn yellow anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. But as I said before, the best thing, if you have a small collection, if you can bring it in, that's fine. If you can't, protect it from the wind, and if you want to cover it, use a blanket or a sheet, and make sure that you put plastic over the top. I really don't think there's anything else to tell you about that. After the cold, after it's gone completely, it doesn't hurt to spray your plants with some type of a fungicide, because if you do have a damage, that'll be intensified. Sometimes you do have a little cold damage, a little spot here and there. So if you spray with a fungicide afterwards, then what you're doing is you're protecting the plant. They have no entryway for disease. Some of these plants don't have to worry too much. This type of plant can take the cold pretty well. This type of plant can take it pretty well. These Phalaenopsis don't like it. They dug down below 50 degrees and they're not too happy. So really, you can take care of your plants pretty easily. Even here in Florida, we have times when it's too cold. Now, the important thing you have to remember when you're fertilizing, there's a lot of acid salts in there, so be sure your plants are thoroughly watered sometime in the morning or even the day before. And when you fertilize, try not to do it in the heat of the afternoon. The most optimum time to do any watering or fertilizing is early in the day. The combination of wet plants in the afternoon and the cooler temperatures at night can be very detrimental to your plants and also to your blooms especially. They cause what is called a botrytis, and it's spotting, and you don't want to grow an orchid a whole year and have a flower and then, wow, it's gone because some little black spots got on it, right? No, we don't want that. Anyway, as I said before, the best thing to you to do is to join a local society. You don't have to join, just go to meetings. There'll be people in your own area. They'll have similar problems. You can learn from them, and you can ask them anything you want to know. My husband, rest his soul, was not one to do that. When we go into something in this family, it had to be all the way and no looking back. I wish I had a nickel for every plant I've killed learning. But I learned, and this is unfortunately what's going to happen to you. You're going to have to learn the hard way by trial and error. There's probably 10 people out there, experienced growers, who are saying, oh, this is not right, this is not. Well, if you have 10 people, you've got 10 different theories. And the only theory that's right is the one that works for you. If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's old landlanders, don't forget. So what we have to remember is water is our most important thing. Make sure that you have a correct pH, and remember where you can get the information from your county extension agent. Airflow, if nature doesn't provide breeze, you have to do it for her, and make sure that you place the orchids in such a place where they can get free circulation of air. Light, well, now we discussed that, and remember that the closer to the trunk you are, the less light you'll have, so that you can control this by moving your plant wherever you want. Food, that again we discussed, and as I said, it is not a given. You don't have to feed the plants. If you find that it's too much trouble, okay, but whatever you do, make it consistent. The plants don't like to have food for a month or two and then nothing. Now there are places that sell a food supplement that you can buy, and it's supposed to last a full year. I'm not sure where to get them, but I'm sure this is another thing that you can check with your local orchid society. Somebody might be able to help you with that. Some of your local nurseries, and this would probably be the easiest thing for you to do. So there's all kinds of places to get information. It's not so much that you don't know anything. That's fine. None of us know everything. But it's knowing where to find the information that's important. And since you do know, then you should have no problem. And next time we're going to talk about hygiene. That will include plant pests and diseases. Until then, get growing.